the percentage of intelligence that is not human is increasing. And eventually, we will represent a very small percentage of intelligence. I try to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years. This time frame is not relevant to AI. You can't take 10 years from the point at which it's dangerous. It's too late. But one thing is for sure, we will not control it.
This thing is happening in the background while people bicker about politics and what's going to be in the healthcare plan in the US. And underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out.
Imagine what would happen if we had to link thousands of brains together. Just like nature creates a superior intelligence by forming flocks, schools, shoals, and swarms, we could create the brain of brains, the world's first ever human quantum computer. Well, what if we told you we already have?
Okay, so my previous company was D-Wave. I'll just show you a couple things. We built what are still the world's only quantum computers that you can buy.
There are literally tens of thousands of some of the brightest people in the world today trying to build these machines and understand them.
Linking brains to machines and creating machine brains.
And Google was the primary interested party that pulled this whole thing together.
So Google was set up 18, 19 years ago to build a giant artificial supercomputer based on the neuron activities of the hive mind of humanity, with billions of people wired into it with the Internet of Things. And so all of our thoughts go into it.
Because what they're going to do is apply this machine to an area that I think is fundamentally important. It's a crux of our future as humans. And that's, can we build machines like us?
Where the machine is integrated into the physiological, psychological, and social fabric of the human. Well, in reality, we're already seeing that socially. We may already be seeing that psychologically. Biologically is the next step, and we're very, very close. And when we do that, this then cracks open the door of this field known as transhumanism.
Mind-to-mind communication. This is something of science fiction that we all read about. But this is actually possible today, as I just showed you. So there will come a point where if we have a chip in our brain, and you out there have a chip in your brain, we can communicate. We can communicate without talking. We can communicate when you're halfway around the world. And we can exchange knowledge.
I think the most important thing to know about living in the 21st century is that humans are now hackable animals. To hack a human being means to understand that human better than he or she understands themselves.
These are not just scientific developments, these are developments that affect the social fabric of our moral regard and conduct. How will we push back on particular long-standing social and sometimes religious traditions that said that human beings are the be-all and end-all in the universe, and we recognize that we might create something that's equally as good or better?
So, we will come to a point where we, as gods, like gods, will be creating our own reality. We will be redefining what the human experience is for the first time in history. Well, we are embarking on a path now where we will become the internet. The internet will become us. They will be inseparable.
You know, Monkey has been able to control the computer with his brain. Just, yeah.
The goal is to make this one of the most simple procedures there is, similar to people getting LASIK to improve their vision. But why do we even need this in the first place? Well, in most cases, it's a bandwidth issue. Now, many people hear this but don't exactly understand what that means. It's a speed problem, it's an energy problem. It's how fast you can get information into or out of your brain. If you have something that you want to write down on a computer, you have to type it with your hands, or speak it into a microphone that's probably going to mess it up. If you want to learn something, it could take days, weeks, months, or even years to fully grasp. If we were able to solve this bandwidth issue, we could accomplish exponentially more in less time with much less physical effort. Neuralink cuts out the middleman and allows input and output directly from your brain to whatever you're doing on a machine, or vice versa. It's like going from writing using a quill, to having a pencil, to having a keyboard, to having Siri, to now potentially having nothing but the power of your own brain.
In the future, though, if somebody hacks into your head because it's connected to the internet, they can steal you. They could actually steal you. They can implant memories in your head that you don't have. They could erase memories. They could control you in ways that you wouldn't even know you're being controlled. Is this scary? So I painted on the hand a heaven, but there is also a hell, right? This is heaven and hell.
So the one thing I can tell you is they're not going to be like us. So alien means, different. These things that we're building are not going to be people. They might be really smart, they might be really good at all sorts of different things, but they're not going to be like us. They're going to be aliens. And they're going to be, I'm sorry to say, way smarter than every single person in this room, in ways that we can't even comprehend.
And what happens when we ultimately reverse engineer the brain and develop a machine that has cognitive capability and emotional?
I believe that humanity is on the cusp of the most important technological, societal revolution that's ever occurred. And that's when we got to the point where the machines that we build outpace us in every respect. I don't mean that they're better calculators. I don't mean that they're better at searching. I mean everything.
Are we ready for the first time the machine literally uses the first person singular I and tells us how it feels? What do I do when I unplug it? And before you go, oh, that's the stuff of science fiction. No, it's not.
So connecting our brains to the internet is going to radically change how we live. And not just how we live, but how we view ourselves as human beings.
I could build, I think, a soul. Here's how I would do it. I copy you exactly into a digital environment. Everything about you. Imagine that was possible. It probably is. So if I copy you into a machine, that copy process has all of the properties we were talking about as being a soul. First of all, it's immaterial, because copying, that's not a thing, it's a process. It's immortal, it's just like you. You can put it in any environment you want, heaven, hell, make a simulation.
They are building false realities into which they want to induct you so they can play God.
If you can transfer knowledge and you can communicate, because your brain is wirelessly connected to the internet, there's no reason you couldn't extract memories, which are just data, out of one brain and put them in another brain. Now, what would it mean to share memories?
This was proposed in 2006 and has largely flown under the radar. Sentient World Simulation is a matrix-like reality simulating humanity.
It is called the Sentient World Simulation. The program's aim, according to its creator, is to be a continuously running, continually updated mirror model of the entire planet, complete with billions of nodes representing every person on the Earth.
Every person on the planet within this computer matrix as a node, and every node is given an avatar, an identifier. And that is real-time, 24/7 monitoring of every person on the planet. This is primarily, but not exclusively, facilitated by the adiabatic quantum computers produced by D-Wave Corporation.
The ultimate aim would be to archive enough data on each individual to be able to make a computer model of everyone on the planet.
A very, very good compressed representation of the world. Call it a model.
Is there sort of like a collective AI in the Google sort of search, you know, where we're all sort of plugged in as like nodes on the network, like leaves on a big tree, and we're all feeding this network without questions and answers. We're all collectively programming the AI.
We have to embody all our data and all our knowledge into a working model. It's like a Noah's Ark, it's like an archive.
Is that it's a very important thing that we create models of the world inside our heads, and everything you think, everything, from your feeling of self to the feeling that you may have a soul or a maker, to your preference for cilantro or not, all of those things live inside a place which is dark and small and never sees the outside world. When we look through our eyes, there are photons hitting the outside of our face. They don't actually make it into the part that thinks. The part that thinks is looking at something else. It's looking at some kind of weird compressed signal.
Brain builds a version of the universe and projects this version of the universe like a bubble all around us. If you zoom in onto the surface of the neocortex, you discover that it's made up of little modules, G5 processors like in a computer, but there's about 1 million of them. They were so successful that what we did was to duplicate them over and over and add more and more of them to the brain until we ran out of space in the skull and the brain started to fold in on itself. And that's why the neocortex is so highly convoluted. We were just packing in columns so that we'd have more neocortical columns to perform more complex functions. So you can think of the neocortex actually as a massive grand piano, 1,000,000-key grand piano. Each of these neocortical columns would produce a note. You stimulate it, it produces a symphony. But it's not just a symphony of perception. It's a symphony of your universe, your reality. So the holy grail for neuroscience is really to understand the design of the neocortical column. And it's not just for neuroscience, it's perhaps to understand perception, to understand reality.
The computer simulation acts as a technological afterlife. One negative aspect to this is that because you are directly tethered to your digital twin, you can be controlled through the simulation.
Right now, each of us has a digital twin that's gestating in the digital cosmos, a digital twin of yourself generated through AI, and that digital twin could, in fact, represent you in the digital world. We're uploading and digitizing our consciousness, our experience, our sensorial bodies. We're constantly putting that data into the digital world, and eventually that will be gathered by an AI. What I'm talking about is the future digital twin of the self, of the person. Who we are in the cosmic digital world will be a digital twin of us. The way that we get there is through quantification of self down to the molecular level, where suddenly in every scenario we have data. and that gets sent directly to the digital self. And that is what we're going to see in the future. Every time we upload any content, any data into a social network, anytime we use our credit cards, all of that data gets implanted into the digital system. And even though that system is fractured right now, even though data is going to a social network, or it's going to a credit card company, or it's going to a medical device, eventually those systems will come together. That digital twin will access that information and represent you in the digital world.